1, 2.
3, 4.
Здравствуйте, дорогие друзья! Начинаем наш воскресный вебинар.
Hello, dear friends. We're beginning our Sunday webinar. As always, in the studio is Dr. Laitman.
Hello.
Alexander Kozlov, Boris Butsukovsky, and myself, Semyon Vinokov. Everyone is in their place. We have our virtual studio, and we are with you today. A very interesting topic, the foundations of a new society in this new world, the age of the new world. Where is this coronavirus aiming us, directing us? Let's begin. Ask your questions, ask them live. We'll be very happy to connect you. See, we're in a different reality now. We're in one state. So ask your questions and write them, and we will ask them for you. Now, Dr. Laitman, can you get us going? The foundations of a new society in this age of a new world. Where are we being pushed to? To what foundations of a new society?
You see, we exist in a global, integral world within which certain integral laws are activated, and these are laws of the integral world. And they control not only our small world and not only the entire universe, but the whole system of the world of creation, and it includes within it all of the 5 worlds. We need to be able to feel them, to see them, and to formulate them within our perception and our worldview. But this is all given to us. So if we're not synchronized with the system, and we don't work correctly with it, and we don't take into account its objectivity, integrality, its interdependence of all of its parts in everything, then we feel bad. We feel a negative feedback from the system. And this feedback, it comes to us on different levels, depending on what kind of distortions we introduce into the system. In our present time, and you can't say this is something that's bad. This is something that equalizes us, it moves us forward, it pushes us, but on the other hand, of course, it's not pleasant for us. But truly, all of us, for the last few years, several years, we are in a certain degree called the last generation, when we feel that we are in an integral world. And this world needs to be normalized into its complete finalized system, and this is all laid upon the humanity in this world. And if we act correctly, take proper steps, then we will discover this entire system. If we don't relate to the system in the correct way and don't advance towards it in the correct way by bringing ourselves close to one another and to the system and to interpreting the system as an integral one, then the system will react upon this, of course, automatically, and all of these kinds of obstacles appear, but they're not really obstacles. These are influences upon us to move us into a different direction, and thus such a virus appears that forces us to stay home, to not communicate, with one another because we didn't have very good egoistic relationships between us prior to that. And we need to sit together in our families, which did not exist in the past. And we need to start acting in a different way. And all of this is calculated by nature in a very precise way because this is an integral picture. The system that influences us in all kinds of ways. So this system evokes certain reactions that follow the way that we must act with this integral system. That's how this virus pushes us forward. So I think we'll, in the very near future, we'll begin to feel this. And I think we will become closer to one another, more understanding of one another. We will remove from our world a humongous amount of irrelevant dealings, professions. We will perhaps stop relating to the earth as if it has unlimited resources where we can extract anything that we want from it. We'll stop relating to our atmosphere, oceans, as if it's something that's not needed. This is how nature is reacting towards us. And I don't think that we'll very quickly bring ourselves to correct interaction with nature. So I would say that I'm constantly being asked about this. I think we'll need to prepare 5-6 months in advance to think of being in this current state. I don't think that this will go away in May or anytime soon. I don't think this will go away. This will be a very serious and lengthy system of stringent interaction between us and the integral nature, until we'll begin to understand that we need to remove lots of professions, careers, and dealings in this world. We'll need to shut doors to all kinds of businesses and activities, and we'll only learn to have what we need that's necessary for existence. In other words, to bring ourselves into balance with the surrounding nature, and then everything will calm down and we'll truly begin to feel through this integral, balanced world. We will begin to feel this world through it, a higher guidance from above that is called the Creator. And that's how we will come to this.
You just mentioned the first generation, last generation. I remember when we studied the article, the future generation, it seemed so unrealistic, like a fantasy. But everything has been turned upside down, and we're looking at what's happening outside, and looking at the topic of our webinar. We can see that we're being led to this. As you said, all the unnecessary businesses are going to go away, all sorts of trinkets that we don't need.
Well, we have come to a state that through this we distort the balance in nature and the environment around us to such a degree that no system can maintain this.
I wanted to write an excerpt from Balsalam on this topic. We have found an opportunity to examine the conditions of life in the last generation, the time of world peace, when the whole of humanity achieves the level of the first side and will use their singularity only in a manner of bestowal upon others, and not at all in a manner of reception for oneself. And it is good to copy here the above-mentioned form of life, so it will serve to us as a lesson and a role model to settle our minds under the flood of waves of our lives. Perhaps it was worthwhile and possible in our generation, too, to experiment in resembling this above form of life. So Balsalam is giving us this as an example of how we can live. So this is what we've been talking about. The question is, what can we do specifically in our life, and what can we advise to people to feel this transition, so that we could feel that we are bestowing, that we can go from imagination to practical implementation.
I'll tell you. In reality, a correct closed system, ecological system that we live in, that we're part of, it's a system where nothing is used in excess. Everything is used for necessities, for existence, and everything else is given for the benefit of the system. That is called a dynamic balance, in which everything, let's say, take the person, the human, out of this. We're only considering, let's say, still vegetative and animate nature. As soon as people leave this system, then all of a sudden balance is achieved between all aspects of nature. Everything calms down. Nature has an answer for everything, has a place for everything. The problem is in a human being, not in a human being per se, but in his egoism. He begins to use his existence to rule, to dominate nature. There's nothing we can do here. We simply need to understand this principle of integrality of nature. It's harmonious and interdependent nature. And if we don't advance towards this in a good way, then nature will resist us gradually, and then when we harm and distort and come to a certain level where nature will not, then at some point nature will not allow this to happen and moves against us. And then all of these problems occur. These could be certain explosions or hurricanes or tsunami, certain technical catastrophes, and something like this coronavirus. Of course, nature has an unlimited collection of reactions towards humanity, and that's because the humanity evokes these reactions upon itself. And I'd like to say that this coronavirus will soften us up in a very serious way, so that we will begin to understand how to act towards nature. Yes?
We have questions, many questions. What new society can we be talking about for as long as the values of the old society are alive and well?
The values of the old society will be shattered. Humanity will not have any other opportunity. Look at us today. The way we're acting. This blow that we're receiving now, first of all, is a global blow. Everyone gets it. The entire humanity. And it's going into places that it has not reached yet. Right now we're reading about Africa, South America, Oceania, as if certain islands that are isolated from the world. No one will be spared. What's interesting is that this virus reaches very far away remote places. The fact that we are home right now, and then we go outside, and as if we bring from the street into our own home this virus, it's actually not so. The virus is within each one of us. It's awakened from within. There comes a time, and this virus is awakened from within. And these external signs that we infect each other, in reality, that's not so. You can find some sort of a remote island far away where people know nothing of this, and you will discover after a certain time, not even touching these people, coming into contact with these people or this island, you will discover that they are also starting to be ill with this virus. This is not passed through the usual way. Of course, it's easier for us to look at it this way, that a person passes this virus to another, you need to keep a certain minimal distance, social distancing from one another, but these are very external, only approximate signs, but everything depends on the people, because they're connected to one another with their feelings, with their thoughts, through this distanced type of communication, remote communication. That's how they pass this virus to one another.
We have more questions coming in. Yes, if I could, I wanted to bring up two big windows, Mach 1 and Mach 2. Those are, there are 200 people that are currently connected on Zoom, and they have questions for you, Rob.
Mach 1.
Mach 1, go ahead.
Ну так кто же там будет спрашивать? Мах 1.
So who will be asking? Mach 1.
Question from Irina from southern Italy. What exactly does nature want from us? What can each of us do today to change for the better future?
Well, we are a part of this global integral system, as if inside a sphere. The entire nature is integral. It's interdependent. It exists within a certain internal balance. But we, people, we were created as egoists on purpose. And we constantly shatter this balance within ourselves and within the animal kingdom, within the nature that surrounds us. Our problem is that regardless of the fact that our egoism constantly develops, we need to come to a state when we bring it into complete balance. We perform a restriction on it and then begin to use it in an opposite way, towards bestowal and towards the correct connection between us. When I take from nature only what I need, only the necessities. Let's say, take a normal person in society today. They make money, they have a wife, children, a house, work. He feels good. He doesn't need anything extra. He doesn't need to bring harm to nature with his extraneous actions. His actions need to be planned in such a way that he is in complete balance, not in a static balance, but in a dynamic balance. So when a person will act in this way, then the world feels good, and the person feels good, and then he can begin to acquaint himself with the system of the world, of the universe. How does it work? According to which formula? What force exists within nature that controls everything? This upper force within nature is called the Creator. That's how it's called. So we can look at nature, that it created us on purpose in this way, opposite to us, to its balance, so that we would begin in our development to see how we are not similar to nature and opposite to it and the Creator, and how we need to change in order to be closer to nature and the Creator, up to the point when we will begin to attain this force that governs us, that exists, and constantly wishes to be in balance with us in this connection. That is the purpose of existence of the human beings, to come into a certain level of connection with nature that is called the Creator. And when we come to that state, we begin to sense that we are in a state of perfect balance, comfort, knowledge, eternity, perfection. And this is a state that we must reach. So this virus that we have awakened, and that awakens us back, it exists for the correct reasons, in order for us to find the proper interrelation with nature and would come into correct balance with it. In other words, to come to the relation of the Creator in order to be in the correct connection with the Creator.
So let's go to Mach 2 for the question, for the next question.
Давайте, ребята, Мак 2.
Здравствуйте.
Go ahead, friends.
Вопрос от Ольги из Екатеринбурга.
Hello, Rav. Olga from Yekaterinburg asks,
Заставляет нас бояться приближаться.
this virus is
Это ведет к большему разделению.
filling us with fear of drawing closer to one another. Is this because people are disconnected, separated?
Thank you, Ola. A very good question. No, this virus does not lead us towards distancing from one another. It leads us towards a realization in what way we must, in the correct way, we must get closer to one another. Since we're egoists, our proximity to one another should not be only in order to use one another. But because that's the case, this virus pushes us away from one another, and it will teach us how in the future we must, what kinds of intentions and actions, internal actions towards one another, we must have in order not to harm one another when we are in close proximity to each other. You will see, this virus is very complex, multi-layered. This virus is a program. It's not just a virus. It's a very wise program that came from nature, that is revealed within us and forces us to reprogram our relations between us. Please, next.
Нет, сейчас. Боря, кто там? Кто там у нас?
Who is next, Boris? New York.
Нью-Йорк.
Здравствуйте, Раф.
Hello, Rav. We know that all the actions are performed by the Creator, and that is clear, evident from the crisis. In order to change and build a new, correct relationships, all that we need to do is to desire it internally, to build a new Hisron.
No, that's not enough. To build a correct desire towards revealing the purpose of the virus, to see our mistakes in our communication with one another towards which this virus is pointing. That's not enough. We also need to understand how we need to be interconnected with one another. In what way do we need to connect with one another? Our coexistence, our communication, our connection, our unity, this needs to be correctly calculated in relation to our desires, to our egoistic and altruistic ones, so that we wouldn't bring harm to one another. When we will disconnect in this way from one another so that we wouldn't harm each other. Not simply sitting at home and come closer to each other. when we will understand that we need to properly relate to one another within our intentions, then we will begin to have correct relationships and build them on a correct degree. When will this occur? I can't tell you, but I don't think this will happen very soon. At least months will have to go by until humanity will realize the purpose, the essence of this virus that is acting upon it. We can say that today, for the first time in the history of humanity, one force is acting upon the entire humanity, evokes within it one effect, and this says a lot. This says that we have come to an integral world, and nature is relating to all of us as towards one, and not a very well-serving organism. And it will break us and keep breaking us more and more with more and more severity if we do not abide by its integral system.
This change, must it begin with Bnei Baruch, right? Because Bnei Baruch is like a Rosh.
You see, of course, the start of correction needs to start with us, which is why we are learning all of this now. And what we're lacking is a system of dissemination. It needs to be quickly and effectively built. I'm hoping that we'll be able to do this in the near future and correctly. That's the problem that we need to solve. That's before us. And we need to attract those people that understand how this works and how we need to act. And then the entire humanity will follow. There's no necessity for us to raise it to such a degree then when they will begin to understand these concepts of integrality of nature. It's not necessary, it's not needed. Baal Salam writes about this. All we need to do is to determine the correct direction for our for our development. And I'm talking about the people that have studied Kabbalah for decades and prepared themselves for such states, and now these states are here, and we spoke about this 10 and 20 years ago, and now we need to fulfill this program. And you're correct that you're saying that this needs to begin with us, while at the same time we're working on ourselves. Simultaneously, we are doing this in the surrounding society, through our studies, through our dissemination as well. Next.
We have several audiences that are watching us, including Facebook and YouTube. Now we have one question from YouTube. Do you really think that even if, let's say, 15% of the Earth's population is going to survive, that would move them from individualism and egoism even by 1 iota?
No, of course not. This would not change anything. And I'm not even talking about to cutting down our population. I'm not even talking about this virus removing huge portions of our population. This will not change anything. Our Earth, as Baal Salam writes, can feed tens of billions of people. We know the huge unpopulated or distances that exist, lands that exist on this earth, and they can feed 20 and 30 billion people. There's no need for us to destroy all of this. If we will restrict our incorrect influence and activities on Earth, then pollution will go away, everything will clear up, the skies will clear up, animals that haven't existed for hundreds of years will reappear. This all depends on our correct interaction with nature, not from reduction of population. You can see what's being written in newspapers, on the internet, that all of these animals are beginning to appear. And only 2 months have passed, and look what's happening in nature. Nature wishes this correct attitude towards it from us, and it reacts accordingly. And I don't think this will take a long time. If a human only a little bit, in the smallest way, will begin to understand his correct connection to the system. We have a question live from Button. I see these guys for the first time.
I've seen them before. But go ahead.
Давайте, девушки.
Ну, говорите.
Well, speak.
Нет. Говорить они не могут.
Не могут. Тогда у
They
нас...
can't speak.
Okay. All right. So we have either Mach 1 or Mach 2. Mach 1, go ahead.
Вопрос от Людмилы, к сожалению,
Question from Ludmila.
понятно откуда. Мы уже
I'm not sure from where. While in quarantine, we can see how the world is changing, and we are changing with it.
но измениться надо нравственно. Как это может...
So we need to change. We need to change within our internally and our qualities.
We need to change within our tents, within our small groups. We shouldn't be thinking about the whole big world yet. The tent that I am in, 10 people, 5 people even, if we're working with Rabash's system, who wrote his articles about the group, the first 20 articles from his first book, then we will begin, if we utilize them correctly, if we begin to feel them through the 10, we'll begin to feel the upper world, the upper system, the creator, the upper force that governs over us. And it's not fairy tales, but these are very clear feelings, sensations. This is what we must do. So when we begin to come into contact with the upper force, with the creator, we're not going to have any issues. We're going to begin to work with him correctly, interact with him, and through him to the rest of the world. We don't need to turn to billions of people. We absolutely don't. We need to interact between one another and with the Creator. But in order to prepare these billions of people, for that, we need to participate in dissemination. However, we don't need to necessarily teach them everything and make them all smart. We don't need to do any of that. The Creator will take care of everything else. We simply need to teach them a little bit in the way that we're talking now. Maybe a little more. Everything else, the Creator is going to do. You will see. We just need to address them with a general volume of information, integral information, and to connect between us and turn to the Creator. That's it. If we do all that, and it's not a big task, then in the nearest future, we are going to see a new world, how the upper world is manifesting in this world, how the boundaries between these worlds are disappearing, like it's the boundaries between life and death, because there are no boundaries, there are no borders. These are simply our psychological relationships. It's hard for me to articulate these things. You're not going to understand me correctly, but everything changes. Absolutely everything. You can read about it in the Kabbalistic literature.
I want to read from Kabbalistic texts from Bala Salam. A developed person feels the egoism as something that's bad, begins to push it away from him to the degree where he loathes it and cannot tolerate it and reject it completely as much as they detect it until they cannot and do not want to enjoy the labors of others. Then begin to emerge in them sparks of love of others called altruism, which is the general attribute of goodness. But that too evolves gradually. First develops love and desire to bestow upon one's family and kin, as in the verse, do not ignore your own flesh. When one develops further, one's attribute of bestowal expands to all people around him in humanity. So, how can we now express this development that people begin to feel not only their family, but this integral connection with the entire society? How can they express this in their social relationships? How can you see humanity, how can you see people being pushed towards this type of attitude?
I don't think it's simple. Right now, people are sitting at home. They're in contact with each other, with their immediate family. This is a very slowly accumulating information, impressions, desires, complaints. In the end, they're going to yield their reaction. We will see this happening. You will see in another week or two and so on. There are going to be problems within families up to some truly horrific things. You know, when families are practically locked away in their apartments and so on. At the same time, we're seeing a great opportunity to disseminate our information. And we must think of how we can bring it to them in a way that they would feel that our information is useful and it is beneficial, it is good. It strips away all of their inner tensions and problems between spouses, between parents and children, and so forth. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for people, and no psychologists of today are going to be able to help. All they know how to do is, prescribe pills. But here we need a very serious entering into the system of humanity, and I think that only our explanation is going to be capable of doing anything. That's why we need to do our work to adapt it, to bring it to them, to help people understand what it is we're bringing them. We still need to develop this lexicon within us. It's not yet fully adapted to the broad masses. More?
We have questions from Mach 2. Question from Vitaly from Riga. Regular people that have lost their income, how should they act during this pandemic? Do they need to try to work on their connection with other people or look for other income?
Under no circumstances should you cut off connection with the group, the people that you're in contact with. It's preferable to explain to people the kind of connection that is good and that will bring them satisfaction and a solution to certain problems. The people that think that they may be able to get back to their regular job need to check themselves. For that, we need to explain to them what activities of human activities in nature are good and they would elicit the right reaction from nature. If it harms nature and its integrality, then this is not going to work at all. These professions, these businesses are not going to get back to normal. You're not going to be able to restore them. I think that this is going to be after we come out of this virus, months and months from today, we're going to be completely different people. We're not going to be just taking airplanes from one end of the world to another as if we lost something. Of course, it's interesting to see new places, but what's the point? Just to think of everyone here is flown everywhere. So what? What has changed qualitatively for us, for our eternity? What have we done? Absolutely nothing. It's just the opposite. So let us draw the right conclusions about our attitude towards the world and to have a different attitude towards life. I think that if we examine it, we will see that many, many professions are going to disappear after this virus passes over us. It all has to do with a great number I don't know, fashion, all sorts of makeup. I'm not against these things necessarily. I have to make this disclaimer. I see a lot of female listeners, viewers. But many other trades, people are only going to work for their own practical benefit wherever they are. Here, I am making money, I need this for my family, for myself, but personally, I find satisfaction and advancement into nature. This virus, like I said, it's not a virus, it is a program that in certain people it comes in and it kills a person on that animal level, and others it reprograms them. But for most it's going to come and make the change and people are not even going to notice. It's like breathing with your mouth or with your nose rather, or just the way that you sense with your body. It's going to reformat us. We are going to be reprogrammed. We're going to think differently, act differently, appraise ourselves and others differently. The world is going to become different. Give it a few more months, and you will see. We may not be able to see ourselves with respect to what we were like in February, in March, in April. We may not be able to compare it directly, but we're going to be relating to our business in this world completely differently. Yes.
One more question, please. A question from Lydia from Kiev. How do we correctly feel and realize this balance with nature? Because none of us has this balance.
Well, you should relate to everyone as you relate to yourself. That's the best. If you relate to everyone in that way, on the inanimate, vegetative, animate, human levels, everything's going to be great. You're going to be able to see the upper governance through them, the program that we call the Creator.
A question from YouTube, from Svetlana. She's asking, why did this virus appear today and not, let's say, 1 year ago?
That question, I don't know exactly how to answer it, why it happened now and not before. Just that our influence on nature reaches a certain threshold, and at this threshold, we begin to trigger a reaction, feedback from it. The truth is that it's not negative feedback. It is a correcting feedback. It advances us forward, but it feels negative to us.
Диана из... Ага.
Да.
Да, пожалуйста.
Нет, слушаю.
Вот
Yes, go
Диана
ahead.
из Фейсбука, да, Диана спрашивает.
Diana from Facebook is asking, Michael, everything you're saying is very interesting. You're talking about a spiritual revolution, but we can't deny that there's a revolution en masse of our economic system. You don't think so?
Of course I think so. I talk about it all the time. You cannot have economics, an economy without ideology, ideology without economy or economics. Of course, everything will change. Naturally, the entire system of man's life in this world is going to change. The unneeded professions are going to die off. Those that were meant to take advantage, exploit others in nature. I talk about that. Only the necessary for our survival is going to remain. I'm talking about normal life. We're not going to have to go back to the caves. But specifically, the things that we need for good, healthy sustenance. And no more than that. People are going to realize where they're going to need to exert and where they shouldn't. And people are going to have a lot more free time. So, is that a bad thing that you're going to have a lot more free time? People are going to be able to spend that time advancing towards attaining nature. This is written in Kabbalah. It's been programmed as far back as 5,000 years ago. So we shouldn't be afraid of what's going to happen. We should instead be afraid of doing what's unnecessary. And just because the economists are going to keep asking us to keep consuming, keep producing more oil, burning oil, and manufacturing materials that we don't need, that are only going to damage the environment and ourselves, nobody needs that. Look at the environment now, that it's already getting cleansed and purified. Just when we were forced to stop contaminating and damaging nature just a little bit.
Yuri from Facebook is asking, don't you think this total calmness that you have can insult the sensibilities of those in panic right now?
I don't want to insult anyone, certainly, but I can't just start panicking, shaking from panic. I understand what's before us. I understand that it's all included in nature's plan. It's all for the benefit of humanity in order to bring us all, unite us together into an integral system, to bring us back into a one common system called Adam. So why should I panic? And I don't wish any harm to anyone. People see me being calm and this frustrates them, irritates them. Don't be irritated by me, join me. Please understand, my calmness is very easily explained. I've been talking about it for the past 40 years at least. So it's all coming true because it's been written thousands of years ago.
Question from Sochi.
Вас не слышно.
Не слышно.
We don't hear you.
You're telling us that we don't need fashion and all of these travels. What will we give people in return? How will we tell them that they will fulfill themselves?
My dear, I am offering to you a travel in a very different dimension, in the spiritual dimension. You're going to be able to travel yourself, fly everywhere you want, anytime you want, to fly from one world to another, and not only see this tiny planet that is filthy and contaminated, you're going to see what it's like to live outside of your body. You have that already. It's in your control. This virus is not a virus, it is medicine that helps us to rise to the next degree of existence of sensing nature. So don't be afraid. There is something to replace this, how should I put it, these losses of yours. I have visited all the continents myself and dozens of different countries to visit my students and so forth, but ultimately you have nothing that stays with you. It's all the same. It's just to fill yourself, to forget yourself. You'll see, a few months from now, you're not going to be remembering this with any sort of regret. You're going to be pulled into very different kind of mysterious unknown.
And external people will hear this?
Yes, they will. They'll hear it. It's we're not going to need to do it. The virus will make them. It's regardless of what I say. I'm just letting you know that it's going to happen. You'll see that people will change. How they will be pulled into different unknowns.
In Zoom right now, we have 270 people from Mac 1 and Mac 2. Would like to give them an opportunity to ask a question.
Ладно.
How do we counteract rumors that what's happening with us today is a certain preparation from the government to vaccinate us globally and to depopulate our society?
Of course, such conspiracy theories always arise. This is how people try to make sense of what's happening to them, that this virus is in fact either a vaccination or some kind of premeditated weapon. I don't relate to these things ever. I don't say anything either for or against. That doesn't matter, because nature still does what it does, and man can't do anything to stand in its way. So be calm about it. Even before they start pushing this theory to places, the virus is going to change their perception. So let them talk. It doesn't matter. Nature is still going its own way, and all of our theories about existing in political or economic games, that some people are pulling the strings, some sort of working some mechanism. It's natural for a person to look to justify problems in ways that would be clear to them, understandable. But it's all very, like, on a micro level. Now, on this global scale, look at all of the changes that are taking place that are impacting absolutely everyone. Rich countries, poor countries, healthy people, unhealthy people, young and old, men and women, when there is absolutely nothing. The virus is just is sweeping the world. It's being studied in all the countries, and nobody knows what to do with it. Who can control it? Who can control it? So don't pay too much attention to these rumors, to these theories. Of course, there are all sorts of small egoistic opportunities right now to assign blame. Oh, this is my mother-in-law who concocted it in her kitchen, and now she sent it my way. was working a long time ago in St. Petersburg in a hospital in the psychiatric hospital. It was a huge hospital, and there were lots of people like that. And they had such interesting, seemingly believable stories. Very, very intelligent people. And they would sit there and speak very articulately. They would spin such yarns, you could write a novel from them. This is not something we should be doing. Before you finish writing the novel, people are already going to be smarter. They're already going to be in the act 3 or 4 of this whole drama. I wouldn't even call it a drama. I would call it a play of the creator that we can just watch and admire. Why admire? Of course, we are paying for it with lives and suffering, but in the end, as a result, we're going to be transformed. We will pay a price. Personally, we will, and it's going to be a big price. But in the end, humanity is going to advance towards something great, towards understanding this inner purpose of nature, understanding how it all works. This is the greatest pleasure that man can have. Those who are currently living and those who have already ascended to the next level of existence, the greatest pleasure is when man attains the inner program of nature, this supercomputer of nature called Shekhinah. And he sees how it all works in all the levels, across all times, across all worlds. And this understanding, this sensation, perception of everything that's happening, it gives eternal and tremendous pleasure. And that is what we call attainment of the Creator. Bulgaria.
Привет из Болгарии. Есть много подключений.
Hello from Bulgaria. We have over 300 connections only on our Facebook page. Question. If the world will continue in this way, limited resources, maybe this will create a certain race. I know that Americans were buying off weapons. Is there such danger?
I don't think it's going to get to that. There are always opportunities for groups of people, for criminals to take advantage of such situations, but it's not going to get to that. Humanity understands that it must feed itself, service itself. Money is not handed out willy-nilly. We can see how all the countries in the world are taking care to give the population the funds necessary for their existence. And then it's going to, each government, they're going to care for how to feed their population. And you will see that it's going to bring us to the right understanding of how to exist. And this progress is moving us towards how to exist in this spiritual environment, how we should exist during our lives here, before and after, and for us to perceive all of it as one whole movement, advancement towards attainment of this one great nature. It is the single greatest, biggest pleasure known to man that can be achieved, and I think that we are getting closer to it, and soon we're going to be able to feel it. We'll keep advancing towards it, so keep writing us, keep calling us, keep participating with us in dissemination. It is the most important means for our advancement to correct the world. I wish you all the best, be well, and until we meet again.